one thing that I've had to purchase is this wire mesh. Basically the piece on the left here, the big piece, is one sheet, which set me back $15, and on the right there's a sort of a half piece which I've just cut to shape there. Now what I've done is divided the job into two pieces, so there's half of it there and the other half will be this part here. Part of the reason for that is that if I divide it into that amount of size, I will probably be able to just do it myself, which is my preference. Just involves the least moving parts as possible. So that's around about 2 meters by 1.5 meters. Okay, and this side's around about the same. Okay, we're pretty much ready to go here. I'm just going to literally go in and brush out all the loose particles with this brush, and then put the mesh in and start the mixing. Now the mesh is all in place and supported by little pieces of concrete. So it's time to get mixing and start pouring some concrete. Just a quick update. I'm working away with my bag over there in the left hand corner now, mixing away each bag one at a time, and I'm slowly filling up this area. Obviously as you work through these things you are reminded of a few things. Obviously buy yourself at least enough cement to fill the area that you're looking at. I'm starting to wonder whether I've got enough. And also make sure you clear your schedule. You don't need to have any extra bits and pieces going on in your day. You need to keep this concrete moving. So the hand mixing worked out well. The only little problem was that things dried a little bit too fast down that top end for me to use my pebble and exposed aggregate idea. But as you can see here, where it's drying, some of this aggregate is exposed, and I had my suspicions that I might be able to just expose the aggregate in the concrete that I was mixing already, and rather than force these pebbles into what is a quickly drying surface, I am going to give the surface a light brush off, and then a light hose down once things are a little bit more dry. I found that if you give it a little brush first and then just a slight spray, just exposes some of that aggregate. You won't want to do it too much, but just enough to expose that top layer before it dries through. I'm just spraying along the edges a little bit as well, just trying to smooth that transition from the old to the new. Just get my brush and just, so hopefully when that dries off it blends in nicely. Just walking up the street with Cookie here, and I see this little pathway, and I was thinking, yeah, if I add black oxide and too many pebbles, it actually doesn't really match some of the slightly more weathered cement look. So I think what I'm doing is probably better than getting too technical. I just see this driveway here and it looks far more realistic that looks about what the slabs out the back of our place look like. So yeah, this would have just been more your regulation concrete laid down that's weathered over time. We're back at the scene of the crime. I actually think this pad is looking quite good in terms of looking slightly aged. It looks like my brush and spray technique has worked to a certain degree. I'm not going to be able to tell until it dries. The day's actually overcast here and slightly damp. Just can feel some slight raindrops falling, although it's forecast to stay dry, so be hoping that slowly dries. And rain is forecast for tomorrow, so I may even prepare to cover this a little bit, as it still looks relatively damp. It's certainly a lot firmer. Also, just another interesting fact, this is pretty much half of the area that I'm doing, and I had 40 bags of 20 kg cement ready mix that I thought would easily be enough, and I used 36. So 36 times 8, you do the math on that, give you 2 seconds. Okay, and you've got the answer, obviously, $288 for that, which is not too bad. Obviously might have been a bit cheaper if I'd gone off and found raw materials somewhere in other parts of the area, but it's a bit hard to find that kind of thing around here, and sometimes it's worth paying for a slight little bit of convenience. Now, I'm never one to run out of ideas, and so I've been thinking, I decided not to use the black oxide because it was going to be a lot of work mixing each individual bag, but I'm considering adding a little to some water here and rebrushing the top of the concrete and then just spraying it off lightly. Okay, so this is my experiment. I've put a little bit of black oxide into a spray bottle and sprayed it on the left hand side piece of paper, and on the right I've just dipped in water and I dried with hairdryer just to have a bit of a test and see what the difference is. As you can see, my mixture on the left with the oxide is not very strong, so I might add a little bit more to that and then begin the process of spraying and brushing as I was doing yesterday. We've had a little bit of rain here, so concrete's aging fast. Good thing that I wanted it to age a little bit, because this is helping. I'm still going to get in there with that black oxide and give that just a slight covering, just to see if that works as well. And hopefully this rain holds off and the concrete can dry in full. This is interesting here. What I'm doing is just spraying a little bit of this black oxide around, or this watered down black oxide, and then I'm just brushing it out evenly, and it's exposing a few more of the pebbles and it's just changing the colour slightly, so hopefully it will end up matching the darkened concrete over there, the aged concrete, a little better. So we'll see. Should be interesting. This is starting to dry off now. just undone a screw on my boxing. Just giving this a bit of a tap around the edges first with a hammer, just to make sure it doesn't sort of break off in big clumps, and then I'll just pull that little piece of boxing away. So when I go to fill this next area, it will be right up to the edge of that concrete section, and that'll be the second and final piece. Now the rain has abated and things are drying out more here. I've taken the edging off there on the left and the right hand side, and I'm about to take the edging off on the retaining wall. It is actually, I think, a good idea to take this off, because if it rains again, which is scheduled for tomorrow, it needs to be able to run off and down that retaining area, so it would be good for that to be off and for the water to have somewhere to go down there rather than sitting on the pad. Now I'm back the next day. I have taken off the surrounding boxing, as I had talked about, and the surface is a little rough on top, and that's kind of what I was looking for really. Want that to start looking weathered and sort of merge in with the surrounding older concrete. And given some time, that will happen. So the next step is to get ready to concrete the second and final half.